And this would be a great time to segue into fungal control, because that's one of the answers to that whole question that Steiner poses, really, is that he's talking about a wet winter followed by a wet spring that is got lots of moon forces, that's giving this big sort of etheric bubble that is allowing all those funguses that are living in the ground to be moved up so that they're now affecting the fruit and that. Right? So that's what he's saying. And he's saying there's so much vitality that it's killing the plant. And it's really strange that vitality does that, but it does that. Now, if we look at this, sorry?
Someone like being on our own the whole time.
Ah, well, he's talking about it's about being pregnant the whole time.
Yes, that's right.
Is what it is. And so I'll just draw a picture just to sort of bring this in, because I really would like to get onto that tomorrow. So we have this image here of the silica processes coming inward with the sand. It consolidates here with the crystals, and then it moves back up, and he calls this the cosmic silica process. And we're saying the clay is really important in that process. As an opposite process, we actually have a calcium process running up here, and of course in the head he talks about earthly substance. And we're saying that this process dots out and then is drawn back down through humus. So up here we've got cosmic substance. And over here we've got earthly forces. And so what he's saying in this story is that we've got this hyperactive sort of calcium process taking place. Too much moon, too much water, too much etheric. That is, in a sense, too much life. We've got too much life. And that there's so much life that it pushes this soil level up here. And that it's because of this life that we get fungal attack. Now, what I'd like to propose to you is what is happening here is that this calcium process is so strong that it's actually overpowering the silica process. And so the plant can't push up. And if you look at the text closely enough, you'll see he's more or less inferring this, that this can't be pushed up. And of course, in that lecture, he says, well, use equisetum, and if you understand how equisetum uses in the human kidney process, you'll understand it. But the message that does arise out of this is that we've got to focus on the clay. And that if we want to balance this, there's a couple of ways we can do this. And one way is in the 5th lecture, where Steiner's talking about oak bark. And in the oak bark, he's talking about the calcium processes taking place in the bark of the oak, and how we need to have this sort of etheric ability to be bound into the earth. And he says that the oak bark preparation will pull the etheric activity into the earth without causing any ripples, any shocks, I think is the term. And so within this context of this big, bulky, etheric calcium process that he's talking about in the 6th lecture, I would have thought he would say, use oak bark. Because he's already said that in the 5th lecture, that we can actually pull this back down by using the oak bark. So that's one thing we can do, is we can use 505. And the equisetum is a little bit of an enigma to me still. But we do get this idea that he talks about equisetum in relation to both migraines and also kidney disease. And he's talking about essentially that we have a too strong a nerve sense process working up into the metabolic system. And that the equisetum, which is a plant that is pre-flowering plant. And so the division of the nerve sense system and the metabolic system hadn't happened yet in our evolution. And so therefore we're wanting this plant that is helping to bind this nerve sense and metabolic process together and harmonise that. And so it's indicating that we're wanting to harmonise that sort of working between those two processes. But as, you know, the only way I can rationalise it working from a silica side is that it's working on this, you know, a silica sand that is actually pushing this back down. And so we have, in that sense, the equisetum pushing back down this way. We have the 505 pushing, sucking back down this way. But at the same time, if we use clay, we actually have the clay pushing this guy at the same time. And, you know, therein lies a solution. And I wish I had my things together enough to show you my wonderful peaches that I grew this year without any sulphur or copper or anything like that. And we had a nice wet sort of summer and perfect, no brown rot peaches. And essentially using these ideas. So yeah, so it really brings me back to these four elements. The importance of these clay, sand, humus and lime as active ingredients. And that if we wanted, we can make preparations of this. You know, to me that would be a next step forward. I've made homeopathics of them and I use them just as homeopathics. But I'm sure we could probably do some other little tricky thing that would help. Okay, questions?
Yeah, well, yeah, fairly practical one. We have extremely high calcium levels in our citrus orchard, and we have a lot of problem with varicoses, okay?
Yeah.
And we use FG4.
Yeah.
The last 2 years that seem to really be pushing it out fast. Now that's an equisetum, isn't it?
No, it's actually made on that. It's got equisetum, it's got some oak bark, and it's got
okay, so it's hitting those two things and it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're this just made.
Yeah.
Although a lot of the stuff kind of you go, well, that all of a sudden was making a lot of sense based on our observations of what's happening in the orchard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm sorry that we have to actually build this context to be able to start talking incredibly practically, but you know, we can talk very practically. And so, okay.